Well, Brazil matters globally, firstly, because it has a huge population, but secondly, because it's always been and always is highly innovative, dynamic, entrepreneurial, and also, of course, from our point of view, very heavily engaged in the international convenience retail sector. Today's program is a Brazilian market update, for that journey, to navigate that journey, who better to join me than Knack's president and CEO Henry Armour, who knows the market inside out, and has a deep personal connection, I think it's true to say, with Brazil. Henry.
Well, Dan, first of all, it's great to be with you. I guess this afternoon, your time, this morning, my time in Washington, D.C., but Brazil is a fascinating market. We've had a number of CEOs of the most progressive convenience retailers from Brazil on the Knack's board of directors. Those of you who have been to the Knack show over the years couldn't miss the large Brazilian delegations that come to the Knack show. And I think there's been a terrific synergistic learning experience from retailers around the world, studying what's happening in Brazil, as well as the Brazilians as they've transformed their market from a fuel-dominated market in decades past to a market in which some of the convenience retailers there, and we have Petrobras with us today, which is one of the leaders, are really adopting and pursuing some of the most progressive initiatives in convenience retailing today. So as you said, Dan, it's a very large market, certainly the largest in South America, and from Knack's perspective, one of the most progressive ones.
Absolutely. Now, as you say, Henry, we're going to be hearing from Petrobras, and we've also got Giselle Valdevez, who's an expert on the market, to give us a broad view across the whole market for the main part of the program. But just before we follow on from many of the things you're talking on there and get into some detail on that, what we'd like to ask you about the Knack show, and obviously many of us will be hoping to be there with you again in Chicago. But we'd love an update, Henry, if you could give us an update on the Knack show latest.
Sure. Well, as Dennis, I always say, the Knack show is the greatest show on earth. Historically, about 25,000 people from more than 70 countries come to the Knack show as the global meeting place for all things convenient. This very inconvenient pandemic that has encompassed us for the last year and a half has really interrupted the industry's historical cycle of coming together every year at the Knack show to share best practices and thought leadership. We're delighted that this year's Knack show will be in person in Chicago this October. Our expo sales tracking slightly ahead of our record year. I think 96% of the expo is sold out right now, and registration is running about 12% ahead of the last time we were in Chicago, which was 2017, a record-setting year. So we're very excited. I think the industry has a pent-up demand to come back together face to face. We've all tried to do the best we could digitally, virtually, as we're doing today, but there is no way to replace the face-to-face knowledge sharing, knowledge exploration that takes place at the Knack show. So hopefully, all I can say is everybody run out and get your double jabs as quickly as possible. We think, from what we hear, we work with the government quite a bit, that the travel restrictions are going to begin to be opened in the United States, but it's going to be clearly a function of status of vaccinations. So we're excited, and I hope to see all of the participants on the call today at the Knack show in Chicago.
Well, I'll definitely be there, and obviously great news to hear those numbers. I mean, you're bouncing back, and you're bouncing back with interest. And I suppose, as you say, Henry, the industry is desperate to get back to some face-to-face contact. It's been a long time, and as you say, nothing is ever quite the same as face-to-face. So, looking forward to it, I have to say, and well done, Knacks, on that score. Looks couldn't be better news, really, could it, right now? So, I know this is a market you're fascinated in. I've spent many trips over in Brazil myself over many years, of course, not recently, unfortunately, in the last couple of years. But that doesn't matter, because we've got someone who really knows the market very well, and has got an overview to present on it for the audience and for ourselves. So perhaps I could welcome Giselle Valdevez. Giselle, welcome first of all.
Hello, Dan, Henry, and our audience. I'm delighted to.
And just to listen in, I'll introduce you properly, Giselle, in a second. But before you start your presentation, let me also welcome Brenda Branco, who's head of BR Mania at Petrobras. And Brenda's going to be presenting second, but welcome, Brenda.
Thank you.
So we're going to be hearing from yourselves in a minute, Brenda. But let me just introduce you properly, Giselle. So you're co-founder and executive director at Valsa. You're also obviously Knack's relationship partner for Brazil. And by the way, good hire, Henry, because she knows the market really well. And I know that because obviously I've spoken to you many times, Giselle, but you very kindly wrote up a fantastic report on the market, which we published in Global C-Store Focus, which really sort of summarized all some of the key changes. And there's been a lot of them in Brazil over the last 12 to 18 months. So what we wanted you to do now is just take us through, obviously many people will have read that report, but why don't you summarize some of the big changes, and we can have a bit of a chat about it as we go through. But if I could hand over to you to do that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm delighted to be at Shop Talk Live with such a remarkable group. Thank you so much for the invitation. It is really a pleasure to be here. And thanks for the opportunity to tell the world a little bit about our Brazilian convenience store market. I have been working at the convenience retailing market for almost 3 decades, since its beginning in Brazil and beginning of my career, and witnessing how much it has evolved. Over the years, our channel has always adjusted to the market, meeting our customers' demands and needs. And specifically, what is happening to our C-store market recently in the past year and a half, or let's say 2 years, is very particular. Partially because of the pandemic effects, the need to quickly adjust to the new reality, and be ready to serve an even more demanding customer, but also because of the implementation of projects which were already planned and were put in place during the pandemic. The pandemic has brought adversities for sure, and despite of that, the Brazilian convenience store market continued to expand and evolve. Let me give you an overview of the Brazilian market. Today, there are about 8,100 convenience stores operating in service stations. Almost 60% of the total C-stores are franchises of major fuels brand, which are Petrobras, BR Mania brand, Ipiranga with AMPM brand, and Shell Select brand. The other part are either independent stores, chains of licensed operators. For example, we have Entreposto and Agora brands, and owned C-store chains such as Rede Mini and Rede Sim. Those are very good examples. And there is a very recent new player, Total Energies, opened its first Bonjour store at the end of May here in Brazil. So another strong player is entering the C-store market. And there is a lot of space for expansion because about 20% of service stations have a convenience store. There is so much potential to grow. Brazilian consumers seek for convenience, for one-stop shop, for a place to stop and take a break, have a cup of coffee and relax a bit. Today, the customer in Brazil prefers to refuel at a service station with a C-store rather than one without it. And from the retailer's perspective, it is important to have another source of revenue, especially during these challenging times like the one we're going through now. So I'm certain that the number of stores will, and I'll say it must continue growing and increase this growth pace. Another interesting point is that the pandemic has drawn the consumer's attention to C-stores. C-stores were allowed to operate as essential businesses during periods of lockdown and social distancing. So they became more relevant than ever for both the consumer and the retail perspectives. Convenience stores are more relevant, and this is a great opportunity for market growth. Something I'd like to highlight is that the concept of convenience is still expanding. What is convenience? This discussion was already going on before COVID-19. There were several reflections about the matter of brick and mortar stores versus click and deliver, fictionless experience, and so on. And the pandemic, which affected the market in several ways, amplified this discussion of what convenience means to the shopper. Convenience is one-stop shop. Convenience is online shopping. Convenience is delivering goods at my door. Convenience is a frictionless experience. Convenience is a fast and not too much touching shopping experience. And because of that, many changes came up with the pandemic. COVID-19 brought huge challenges here. The need to quickly adapt to the new reality and meet new demands made convenience stores rethink offers and service. And of course, the biggest challenge was and still is to maintain sales and profit. But for that to happen, technological solutions were accelerated. But for that to happen, technological solutions and product mix was adjusted, online shopping and delivery options were implemented. And the Brazilian market came up with good solutions for those demands, for those convenience needs. The channel hit the accelerator to introduce technological solutions. Online offer has been expanded, mobile ordering, giving the alternative of curbside pickup or delivery. And many stores have launched partnerships with third-party apps. Digital payment methods providing contactless payments and QR code for touchless menus also. And cashback programs helped building consumer loyalty. So yes, sales were impacted. They still are due to the restrictions and less people going out. It affected the forecourt and store traffic decreased, but those initiatives helped sales start recovering. As visits to stores are less often, delivery has been one of the ways to keep up with in-store sales. And C-stores have also revised their assortment in categories such as household care and groceries. And in food service, grab and go and better for you options were expanded. I want to highlight a creative innovation that came up with the pandemic: automated stores in residential or corporate condominiums.
And this, just to interrupt, Giselle, I mean, I'm very interested to hear this next bit because it's something that we've seen being trialed everywhere, but it's, I'd say, you know, Brazil's moving quite fast in this area, aren't they?
Yes, it is. It is, and this is something that is here to stay, in my opinion. Actually, this automated stores were already in place before the pandemic. Very few ones, but with the pandemic, this new company specialized in autonomous retail established their businesses. And this is expanding, a lot of them here in Brazil, and this is convenience. I mean, it's hyper proximity, and so it's close to home, to work, and I think this is here to stay. They've established their businesses inside containers, as you can see at this picture, or rooms inside the condominiums, and in different regions here in Brazil. It's all over Brazil, and as an example, and as I said, there are several here in Brazil. The Irota supermarket chain, which also has its proximity retail format, has launched Irota em Casa. There are already more than 40 stores, Irota em Casa, in condominiums in São Paulo, and they're fully automated, self-checkouts and digital wallet, selling the categories. I mean, non-alcoholic beverages, beers, and ready-to-eat meals, edible and non-edible groceries, health and care.
Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, I know it's growing fast, Giselle, because when you wrote the article, which was 3 months ago, there were 21, which was in my notes, and it's already gone up to 40. So, you know. Henry, I thought that was particularly interesting because it's obviously in Europe. You can talk for other markets, the US particularly, but in Europe there've been a lot of trials, but they don't seem to be rolling at anything like this speed.
I think the rest of the world, they've been really failures from it. China with Bingo Box and a number of others were very aggressive and virtually have all shut down. The biggest problem that we've seen is really supply chain issues. Is how do you restock these things, and that's been the challenge. I think it's also, and Giselle, I think you pointed this out, kind of hyper proximity, but it is really not in replacement of a traditional store. It's rather bringing a limited assortment, a more limited assortment to a location that has less footfall, and you can't justify putting a normal man store there. But I'm gonna be super curious as I come back down to visit Brenda and Giselle and our other friends in Brazil in a few months. Really, has Brazil been able to solve some of the problems that has been associated with unmanned stores in the rest of the world or not, or whether this is a kind of a flash, a response to the pandemic, and things will the bright shiny object won't be quite as shiny in the future. But I'm like you, Dan, super interested in doing this, particularly because of labor shortages in many areas of the world and labor costs. It's something that many convenience retailers have their eyes glued to. Great comments. And so Giselle, tell us a bit more then, back into your presentation. Tell us a bit more. I'm very interested.
Yes, I'm also curious about this, what will happen. I mean, the routine and habit changes with the pandemic, working from home and social distancing, and this forced the people to concentrate most activities and at home and around home. So this business format is now very compelling, but let's see what's going to happen. It's very convenient for sure. And besides the adjustments that were forced by the pandemic, what else is happening at our Brazilian market? The petroleum companies, major fuels brand, are expanding their C-store chains to standalones as proximity markets, street stores out of gas stations. And proximity stores was already a trend before the pandemic here in Brazil. Supermarkets have in recent years developed their smaller versions as neighborhood shops and offering products for small purchases and emergency purchases and also food service. So chains, as you can see, there's some pictures, chains such as Carrefour Express, Irota Food Express, Minuto Pão de Açúcar, Mini Extra are expanding here. And so, as I was saying, this format is now being launched by the fuels companies as standalone. They need to shop close to home or work in a one-stop shop has boosted this format. Ipiranga and Raízen, with the OXXO brand, are now players in this business. So let me tell you about OXXO in Brazil. 2 years ago, Raízen, which is the Shell brand licensee in Brazil, and the Mexican FEMSA Comercio announced a joint venture. A year later, last year, they created a new company called Grupo Nós to operate convenience and proximity stores. Convenience stores under the Shell Select brand at service stations, and OXXO as proximity stores as standalones. And FEMSA has more than 19,000 OXXO stores in Latin America.
And Giselle, just on that point, I mean, this is a very powerful grouping, isn't it? So it's bringing together obviously Raízen and group and OXXO or FEMSA. Henry, and I mean, it's a business you know terrifically well, isn't it?
Yeah, OXXO actually is Knack's largest member. The Knack was founded in the States, and yet a Mexican company is our largest member in terms of number of stores. It's an interesting entry strategy because OXXO first went outside of Mexico in Colombia with standalone OXXO stores. Not very successful. They thought this powerful OXXO brand that every Mexican is kind of born understanding and embracing, and it didn't, there was no knowledge of that brand in Colombia, and they struggled a bit there. I think the entry in Brazil with Raízen on Shell forecourts and with a Shell forecourt, I think it's a different approach to it. OXXO is an extremely talented and intelligent company that learns a great deal from their past endeavors. So I think it will be interesting. The other thing is Giselle was talking, and she's used the word proximity retailing quite a bit in her discussion so far. Dan, in your neck of woods in Europe, that is really what the market has always been, was proximity, small stores, really with pretty good assortment. And then 2-3 decades ago, the growth of hypermarkets, these value-driven, price-driven, large, very inconvenient, but very inexpensive format kind of took over the world. And what we've seen is kind of a rubber band effect of snapping back. And I think one of the enduring lessons or enduring dynamics of COVID was that people rediscovered or discovered for the first time what they could actually buy in smaller stores. It opened their eyes to, and particularly for convenience stores with fuel forecourts, they always thought of them as just gas stations. But the format, I mean, Brenda will, I think, speak in a little bit about Petrobras. And you saw pictures that Giselle just showed that once they went in the store, it's a new experience, and it's so much more convenient and closer to where they live and where they work. And I think this enduring demand for proximity we will see coming out of COVID.
100% agree. And Giselle, so this is a powerful grouping, Giselle, right here with these two massive players in the Brazilian market. Tell us a bit more.
Yes, and Grupo Nós with OXXO, it opened its first store here in Brazil in December 1st, 2020, in Campinas, which is a city at the state of São Paulo. And up to now, there are about 25 OXXO stores in Campinas, Jundiaí, and São Paulo, all at the state of São Paulo. And there are more than 1,200 Shell Select stores at the service station. And they continue to open new stores, either OXXO or Select. Yeah. OXXO brought this concept of convenience to a mini market. The stores have a wide product range, bakery items, and this is Shell Select. And OXXO has this more categories. I mean, they have a wide product range, bakery items, food service with a wide variety of offers, and edible and non-edible, fruit, vegetables, meat, beverages, and all the C-store categories. And Grupo Nós plans to open in the next 3 years 500 stores. And so this is a very good project. And Ipiranga has also opened its first AM/PM street store in December.
I mean, this, just quickly, Giselle. I mean, this is a different approach, isn't it, by Ipiranga in terms of doing it themselves? Yes. You know, it's interesting.
Yes. They also have the street store. And today they have this store format opening in Campinas, São Paulo, and here in Rio de Janeiro. AM/PM is the largest convenience chain in the country, with more than 2,000 points of sales at service stations. And let me tell you, before COVID-19, Ipiranga was already developing a new AM/PM project based on consumer journey and demands, and has launched it in the beginning of last year. And the innovations were many, from the design to technological disruptions. And the new concept has a wider assortment, especially in food service. Ipiranga introduced digital solutions for a fast and fluid experience for both in-store shopping and online marketplace. And those solutions had a perfect fit with the actual claim for frictionless purchase and less physical contact. During the pandemic, they've implemented a digital drive-through, which allows purchases at the forecourt without leaving the car by scanning the QR code to access the menu. And then after mobile ordering and payment, the items are delivered to the car by a store employee. From home, the customer can shop at AM/PM on the main digital marketplaces and have the goods delivery. And also another innovation, which is called a room service. I do like this name.
I like it.
Yeah, it came up with the pandemic at stores close to business centers. The customer accesses the menu by QR code and pays by mobile and chooses between receiving at the office or curbside pickup. And so that's the news from Ipiranga. And as I've talked about Raízen and Shell and Ipiranga, I need to mention Petrobras, of course, but I will only mention some key points because, of course, Brenda will tell us the whole story. In February, Petrobras, BR Distribuidora, announced a new partnership joining forces with LASA, which is called Lojas Americanas. It's a very big and well-established Brazilian company in retail segment. It operates in both physical and digital platforms. And the new company will be in the convenience business. And we will have the details with Brenda. And another highlight about Petrobras is that very shortly before the start of the pandemic, the gas stations and the BR Mania stores launched a new and modern design and I'm sure she will show us some images.
Well, Giselle, you're going to come back as a guest because you do the segues for me, and that just makes my life so much easier. So I really appreciate that, and we're very well put.
Yeah, thank you. It was a quick ride through the market as it stands here, and
well, thank you for that. No, I think it was terrific, and Henry, some great knowledge, from that. And I think we're having a good discussion. But let's.
I don't know if we have. Do we have a moment? Do we have?
Yeah, sure we do. Sure we do. We've always got a moment.
Can you go back in your presentation to the first Ipiranga slide you had, AM PM slide? Because I saw something very interesting on it.
This is a job for our backroom team of Nicholas.
All right, backroom team. Nick, can you go put up Giselle's presentation and go back to, I think it was 3 slides back. There you go. That's the one. So look on the milkshake window.
I see.
On the right-hand side. So Ipiranga's team, as Petrobras' team, our members from around the world typically have attended our Convenience Summit Europe, our Convenience Summit Asia, our global forums. And one of the things probably 5 years ago that Ipiranga saw in Asia was a McDonald's that had a kind of just walk-up window for beverages only. And it was when we were first starting to talk about how you reduce friction. So instead of having to go in the store, stand in line and so forth, at McDonald's in Asia, you could walk up and get a cold drink out of there. And I saw, Giselle, your photograph here, and they've implemented it with milkshakes right from the street. You just walk up to the window and order it. Terrific innovation and really learning from other parts of the world. I think it's a prime example of seeing something in another part of the world and bringing it to your country to have first mover advantage of it. So thanks for sharing that, Giselle.
No, great spot. So Brenda, let's hear about Petrobras and what you're doing with BR Mania. Because I know you've got some exciting stuff to share. So let's hear what you're up to.
Okay, Dan, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. First of all, I'll run through the big numbers of BR Mania. This is the way we say in Portuguese. So we are part of a larger organization called BR Distribuidora. So there are more than 7,000 Petrobras gas stations in Brazil, and within those, more than 1,100 BR Mania stores, all of them operating under the franchise model. We served last year more than 56 million consumers, adding up to $200 million gross revenue. We are also proud to sell more than 150 private label food service items. And on the same slide below, you can see a timeline. This is a very interesting moment of history for BR. BR was founded in 1971. And up until 2017, we were a state-owned company. From 2017 onward, the company went through a series of public offerings that resulted this year, actually last month in June, in a company listed in Brazil's stock exchange market, what we call a full corporation. That gives us total independence and the ability to accelerate our businesses. And also this year, when we celebrate our 50-year anniversary, we're spinning off the convenience store business unit, creating a joint venture with Lojas Americanas, as Gisele mentioned. Of course, we are still waiting for our antitrust entity in Brazil to approve the deal, but we are confident with this because Lojas Americanas is a very strong, experienced retailer from Brazil. I'll talk more about that in a minute. 2020 is surely a year that will always be remembered. All of us faced a huge challenge. As Gisele said, the sales were impacted, but our chain showed to be a very resilient chain. Although consumers went less often to our stores, when they went, they bought more items. So our average ticket, as you can see below, increased a lot. And we have that kind of versatility because we sell goods for immediate consumption and also future consumption. So that was very, very good. On the next slide, I share with you our value proposition circle. Me and my team, we work hard every day to strengthen all of these elements to satisfy both the franchisees and the shoppers. I won't have the time to discuss all of the elements, but I want to highlight 3 of them, starting with the store models. When we double click the store models in the next slide, we see BR renovating its image, also in the forecourt. That happened last year. And this new design, it reinforces the country's main colors, the green and the yellow, as we are recognized by our people as the Brazilian loved gas station brand. It also refers to the energy station. As you can see on the top, this gradient color. This is a very strategic and new positioning. We're transitioning from a fossil fuel company to an energy company. The new design also connects more the convenience store with the forecourt. If you remember, our logo type used to be pink. Now it's also, it follows the same color code as the forecourt.
Yep. We
have more than 50 stores in this new format already and expanding. This is the entrance, the same background as I have here. We invite consumers to pause, to relax, to re-energize. The interior, as you can see, sorry, Nick. As you can see here, has more cheerful colors. The new model was developed also thinking of the profitability for the franchisee. So besides the whole color code, the look and feel with more vibrant colors, also in the next slide, you can see that the checkout is now integrated with the food service counter. Yeah. And that reduces costs and increases efficiency. See there? Yeah. Also, we changed the materials. The next slide, you can see we are using more wood to create a cozier environment, so the consumer stays longer in our store and spend a little bit more. Finally, as beverages, they represent a very strong and destination category. Now both sides of the stores have refrigerators, so we can serve a better assortment. Going to the second element, technology. As you know, our operators are very analogic. And in that sense, the pandemic made all of us rethink and reinvent ourselves, considering our sales channel. Here above is a quote from NRF, and we use this slide on our forum with the retailers in April. Brick and mortar stores are still very important, but they need to be proactive. Retail needs to go after the consumer. So that's why We doubled our media plan investment. We created our new Instagram profile that I invite you all to follow. We launched ordering through WhatsApp, and we negotiated competitive fees with iFood, which is Brazil's largest food aggregator, a third-party app for delivery. As a result, stores that operate delivery, they sell 41% more than the ones who don't. And our job now is to encourage more and more stores to embrace that new channel.
That was one of my questions, Brenda. How's it doing? And that's a nice number to be able to talk about, isn't it?
Yes, we were very impressed when we did the calculation. 41% more. But it's not easy to encourage, to engage these entrepreneurs in this new sales channel. It's a different model that they have really to embrace. And my last part here is the last but not least, the final element, the joint venture. So in February this year, we signed the binding MOU. Americanas is a 90-year-old retail chain. It's older than BR, and they have more than 1,700 stores. It's a particular model, like a discount store, larger format, and also 55 neighborhood stores on the streets called local. We feel that this new company will truly benefit from the strengths on both sides. So they are very strong in confectionery, snacks. We are very strong in beverages. They're really strong. They really know how to operate owned stores. And we know how to manage the franchise business. And on top of that, there are two expertises that LASA brings to the new company that address pain points from us. Henry talked about that, considering the small formats. The supply chain, they have 18 distribution centers spread out in Brazil. And the digitalization, because Americanas is like our Amazon, right? It's one of the largest e-commerce players in Brazil. So we feel that this merge will bring lots of synergies to the new company and for this moment that we're living. So that's it. We have a lot going on.
You do. Brenda, thank you very much. And congratulations, particularly obviously on the results for BR Mania. Let me get it right, in terms of, how it's performing. Let me just, obviously we'll come back to you in a second, but let me just go to Henry and then Giselle, really thinking about, some of these big partnerships like the one we just heard about with Americanas that are forming in Brazil. Henry, what do you think? And obviously supply chain is important. What's driving these big partnerships, would you say, Henry?
Well, I think supply chain is a big piece of that. I'm also very interested, Brenda, in your comment that Lata is kind of Brazil's Amazon, because as we look at supply chains around the world and e-commerce, clearly the Amazon is the biggest global player there, but how they do that brings tremendous advantages, particularly for new product introductions, smaller drop sizes, things like that to the table. So I think that everybody's kind of looking at, do we build this ourselves, which is incredibly expensive, and then you have a kind of company specific portal, or do you partner with a leading e-commerce company that much less expensive to do, has a much broader existing customer base. So I think that's a piece of it. Brenda, I had a really a question about, on one of your slides, you had sales through WhatsApp, and is that a BR initiative, and how are you leveraging WhatsApp as a ordering platform?
Yeah, we have a partnership. You know that Brazilians love WhatsApp. It's a
Right.
big thing here.
Right.
You're
That's how
heavy
you and I
adopters.
always communicate.
Yeah,
I always send you an
exactly.
email and you always send me a reply on WhatsApp. But
Yeah, we prefer WhatsApp than emails. But we partnered with a company, and it's very easy for the consumer. There is a chat bot, and then the assortment comes out. They can the consumer can choose like in a menu,
yep,
and then the retailer can use either their own delivery person or a third party. So it's starting to heat up, and it's a good initiative, considering that Brazilians love, they are most of the time here connected in their WhatsApp, and also the fees are smaller than the one from iFood, for example.
sure. Or Rapid. So, and BR knows the customer because it's ordering off your platform, right? And one of the
Right.
huge challenges using, a third party system or partnership is if you're using their platform, their ordering portals, the retailer really doesn't know who the customer is. So
Exactly.
congratulations for experimenting with that. I'll be very curious to kind of play around with it the next time we're together.
Yes.
Very, very, very interesting initiative that. Giselle, any points from yourself on what Henry said, but also on Brenda's presentation and some of the big changes and shifts that we're seeing?
This joining forces with Lojas Americanas will be great for our market. The capillarity of both companies is very big. They're all over Brazil. And supply chain, I agree, is the main challenge. Is one of the main challenges here for our market, and this will be very, very important. I think the results are going to be great. And this digital platform, I mean, yes, Americanas is like our Amazon. So this will be very good for our customer. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen, and a lot is going to happen here in our market, and that's great. That's very good.
And I guess because the scale of some of the players in these partnerships is so large, some of these shifts may happen very quickly. I think that's the other thing that's particularly interesting about the Brazilian market right now.
Yes, things are happening really, really fast, and it's interesting because it's a year and a half, 2 years that's there's a lot of things happening. I mean, we're facing this big problem, which is the pandemic, and even so, the market is heating up, and so I can't imagine what's going to happen when all this is over, and I do hope it's soon. So let's see.
In many ways, someone wrote an article at the start of this that I forgot about until recently, and then I remembered it. And the title of the article was "The Great Acceleration," and it's true, isn't it? This has accelerated so many things, and smart operators have repositioned quickly and taken opportunity of new customer needs. And it's fascinating to see that happen in Brazil. We've had a couple of nice comments congratulating you both, Giselle and Brenda, on your presentation. So thank you for the member of the audience who said that. I thought they were great, Henry.
Me too. Just your comment on digital, really, and Giselle's comment, and you're saying these are big partnerships. One of the things that we have really seen is scale matters in digital. and e-commerce. So it's not really surprising after companies have moved through a proof of concept phase that big companies are doing partnerships with big companies to achieve scale in digital. And we're seeing that around the world.
Yeah.
Once you
Scale-
put your
scale
toe in the
does
water
matter.
and the water is okay and you're going to jump in, it really becomes a matter of fully jumping in.
I was going to try and encourage a few questions just by talking about the chat, and we've got one. So let's perhaps air that. And I think it's for Giselle from Oliver Butterworth for IGD. Thanks, Oliver. Why do operators like OXO and AMPM seem to focus on the Campinas? Is that how to pronounce it? Area of Sao Paulo?
Campinas, yes. Well, Campinas in Brazil is a city that for years was a good place for research, and it's a good market. Actually, I've lived in Campinas for 2 years. It's a city in the state of São Paulo. Well, it's starting in São Paulo because São Paulo is our largest state, and this city is a very good city to test new offers and things and research and everything. So they're starting in Campinas, and as you saw, both OXO and OXO really started with a lot of stores at its launch in Campinas, and Ipiranga as well. And so it's a good place to test and to start. And start creating the people's attention and awareness about the brand and the offer and what's happening. I mean,
it's also pretty handy for us guys, isn't it, Henry?
Question, Oliver.
It's also pretty handy for us guys when we visit to be able to go to one place and see such a massive amount of innovation, concentrated in one place. But I mean, just sort of drawing things together as we get to the end of the program, Henry, I mean, there's a lot going on in Brazil, isn't there? I mean, it's more than ever.
Well, there's always been a lot going on in Brazil. It's really the market where I think most experimentation has taken place. And I think a lot of that is because it really was one of the early substantial markets in Latin America that pursued the transformation from pure fuel retailing to fuel and convenience retailing. And in doing so, there's been more innovation there than elsewhere. And there's huge amount to learn in Brazil, as there is in Argentina, in Chile, and Colombia, and Peru, because there's cultural differences in all of those countries, and how you go to market is you can learn a lot.
Well, I think that sums it up well. Let me just thank everybody as we draw things to a close. So first of all, Giselle, thank you for all the work you did on your feature, and then helping us put this together. And I think you're really helping communicate some of the greatness in the Brazilian market to the outside world. We've got 19 countries registered for this program, and of course, you'd expect a lot of Brazilians in the audience and Latin Americans, but we've also got all kinds of other countries as well who you wouldn't expect. So we're all quite interested in what's going on in Brazil, and you can see why with what you're doing, Brenda at BR Mania, sorry. And it's very impressive. So thank you, Brenda, for agreeing to share that with us. And good luck with that new format, and may it continue to get those kind of numbers, because obviously you'll be very happy if it continues to achieve that level of success. So thank you. And Henry, great to have got you on Shop Talk again, and terrific knowledge of the market, obviously, which you always bring. So we really appreciate having you on the program.
My pleasure, and I always like to be not only with you, Dan, but with my friends from Brazil.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I'd like to thank you as well. It was a pleasure to share this space and time with you, and I do hope that we can get together in person in the near future. I'd love to have you guys over here in Brazil.
Well,
In the meantime, come to Chicago to the next show.
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I hope so.
We hope
Yes,
so.
yes.
Well, that won't be that far away, will it? And one Brazilian word to finish. I think today's been fantastico. That's reasonable pronunciation, I think. And, always is. I miss Brazil terribly. It's one of the markets I really look forward to getting back to soon. So thank you for bringing a bit of that Brazil to the rest of the world today. And let me, if I could thank you now, and then let me just tell you a few things that are coming up next before we close the program. So Giselle, Brenda, and Henry, thank you. Just yesterday, we were filming an interview with Ilias Munchi, the group commercial director with EG Group, and we'll have that out within a few weeks. EG Group, obviously, in 10 international markets, doing a lot of interesting things. So back filming again. That was great, and it was one of EG's new Starbucks sites in the northwest of the UK, which we feature in the film as well. So that will be coming out soon. The other thing I wanted to mention is for Knack's, looking at the Knack's Convenience Summit Asia, which has always been, I think, a key event in the global calendar. Knack's have made massive strides in Asia in recent years, and we think this is here at Insight, this is a pivotal event for the industry to be engaged in, because of course a lot of the future is coming from Asia, and this is Knack's, the tremendous work they do is really helping us to learn about it. And
yeah,
this is
Dan, it's going to be virtual again, as the slide shows. Hopefully next year we'll be back in person, but we've got a terrific agenda. Some of the topics being last mile solutions. Really, Asia has led the world in that. Emerging retail technologies, where Asia has also been advanced. I'm particularly excited about a presentation we have on the future of work. What does that look like? And of course, the awards we have on technology, sustainability, stores, and a new community engagement, how companies have really supported their communities during the pandemic. So I look forward to hopefully seeing many of you virtually next month. The dates are on the screen there.
Thank you, Henry. And terrific insights into what to expect at Convenience Summit Asia. And I, for one, looking forward to it. Anyway, thanks for spending some time in Brazil with us. Thank you again to Brenda, Giselle, and Henry Armour. And look forward to the next time. Good afternoon.